David, maybe you'd like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the company.
Hi, I'm David. Thanks, David. Wow, it's exciting. We monetize messaging apps. We've built a cloud-based platform for analyzing text and trying to match between what users say and what they want and product offerings. But before I go further, maybe the short movie, self-explanatory. Here we go.
So David, the video is obviously very cute, and it's quite tongue-in-cheek, but I gather that the point you're making is it's all about keywords?
Well, definitely not about keywords, because keywords will not be able to convey everything you want, the whole information, time sensitivity, how urgent it is. So technology is much more wider than just keywords, and maybe we'll talk about that later on.
Maybe as long as we're talking about technology, you could give us a little bit more now. To what extent is this different from other kinds of text mining applications that already exist?
Well, a lot of text mining applications deal with structured text. These are chats, messaging apps, people texting to each other in many languages. Typical chat is very convoluted, lots of slang. So to be able to handle a lot of that data in real time and be able to understand what is the topic that people are discussing, that's very tricky. So our proprietary topic modeling algorithms do just that. And they're very key-tuned to what's going on chats, and they learn as they go. So we don't actually understand what you're saying, but we're focusing on topics and then trying to fit whatever the user likes.
And you're only focusing on chats?
Well, I think the messaging space is one of the most exciting spaces and markets in mobile. You're looking at East Asia, companies like Line, WeChat, Kakao. They have 300, 400 million users. They're moving towards e-commerce. Most of the young people spend about 40% of their time on these platforms. So this is where it's happening, and I think there are a lot of opportunity for us and others in this space, yes.
What about privacy? Don't your users get freaked out by having their emails read and being served recommendations on the fly like that?
Well, we take privacy very seriously, and in fact, we don't know who you are. You're totally anonymous to us. We don't store the actual messages. So unlike Google and Facebook, who know much about everything about you, we don't store all that stuff, and so you're protected. Having said that, we do have to acknowledge that there's a kind of a generation shift. The young users are much more open. My 10-year-old daughter sits about most of the time on chat. So what privacy is she concerned about? It's the dad and mom privacy. All the rest is not interesting to her.
What's your go-to-market strategy?
Well, because we're launching now, we're targeting on one side the mid-market players, chat that have between 250,000 to 1 million users. And on the other side, we've decided to focus on two topics, gamers and pets.
And what do you mean by pets?
Pets, you know, the pet market's a $58 billion market for food, for taking care of pets, and that's what we're going after.
Tell me a little bit about the milestones that you've reached so far.
So we worked a little bit under the radar. We set up a team, so we have a very good team in place, some folks from the intelligence business in Israel. We have boots on the ground here in the U.S. Our Chief Digital Officer, Kayla. Kayla, say hi. And because we're launching right now, we feel pretty ready that we're able to start crunching partners' data and produce some good results for them.
You mentioned the team. What about yourself? Can you give a little bit of your own background?
I'm basically a software guy. So I started my career in the Israeli army in one of the defense forces units in computers. Did a few companies. Not all of them are great, but we were fortunate enough to sell our previous company to Mellanox a year ago. And then I admit I got hooked to all this messaging space, and that's what we're doing right now.
And what's your funding situation?
Well, as I said, we're self-funded up till now. We want to make sure that we're validating the market, talking to partners. We had a very successful run with one of the largest messaging apps here in the Bay Area, and with some very encouraging results. And now we're doing a seed round of about $1 million, which we have some commitments for. And the thing about these kind of companies, you want to reach revenues pretty quick, because then you're on your own feet. And it's always better to take money from customers than from other people.
Can you talk a little bit about the value proposition? Who's really benefiting here from all of this?
Well, everybody's winning. You know, you're not spamming the users with things they don't like. Publishers are getting better value for their real estate because it's becoming a premium venue. Advertisers are seeing higher conversion rates. They can go after their brand advocates. So it has value all across the board.
And where do you see yourself 2 years from now?
Well, you know, we're trying to solve a very fundamental problem here in the transition, moving from web to mobile. Because on web, you might recall we had all these cookies, right? Whereas in mobile, you've lost those cookies. So how do you profile people? How do you know what they want? And we're trying to build what we call conversational targeting, that we can build all this data and be able to work with ad network, ad exchanges, partners, and still bring value to users and partners.
Well, it seems like a really exciting application to me, and I'm looking forward to see when it gets launched. I think we have a few more minutes. If anybody else has any more questions from outside, please.
So your first question is, what about languages? And that's a very good question, because when you sit on that floodgate of chats, they're coming in multiple languages. But because we're using probabilistic statistical algorithms, then it's basically language independent. So we don't care if it's Chinese, German, or English. And regarding the context, it's tricky, because let me give you an example. If a guy says, you know, I just passed round 6 to round 7 in Candy Crush, so maybe he's a gamer, but then a guy writes to his girl, I'll pick you up round 6. He doesn't say around, because it's a chat. They don't use it anymore. So you have to be able to get the context. So the answer is yes, our topic modeling gets that. Albeit we can have some misses, but it's a probability game. So if you're above the 80%, we're going to do something about it. Yes, please. So So the question was, do we have to train the system? And how do we train the system? So basically, we're using two types of algorithm. One is supervised and one is non-supervised. The non-supervised doesn't need training. It will just pick up the topics on itself. The supervised, we're feeding them basic stuff that we have for live data. Let's say if you're looking after gamers, you're going to feed them. We have some crawlers working on gaming forums. But you don't have to do quite a lot. The machine gets better as it goes along. So if you feed it with like 50, 60 positive signals, you're good to go. You're not perfect, but it takes a week for the system, like 1 million to 2 million chats, and you're going to have some good results. We're about out of time. The non-supervised, you don't have to train them. It trains itself. The supervised, you feed them positive sentences that you think reflect that topic. So automated chat meaning what? Like an agent that answering services? I think the interesting part of that would be what is the person saying, not what the agent is saying. So if you go to like banking systems that have some support, that could be valuable information. All the people that are doing messaging are sitting on a pot of gold. They just have to analyzing.
One last question, and then we have to.
I didn't say that. I was saying that the transition moving from web to mobile, you're losing a lot of data that the cookies gave you. But when you follow, and that's what I'm arguing, that when you follow all those conversations, you'll have enough data to give the ad networks the information that they need to target on mobile. Because mobile is much more trickier than web, has less real estate. The customer, the end user, is much less patient with what you have. So if you're not targeted, they're just going to switch apps. So you be very careful with that. Yes, we're partnering with messaging apps. Okay, that's our partners. I didn't. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.